All right, ready to dive in. Today we're tackling mindset, and I know you're interested in this one. You sent over those excerpts from Carol Dweck's Mindset, that new Psychology of Success book.
Yeah, it's a classic.
It really gets you thinking, I mean, just the idea that what you believe about intelligence can actually affect how you learn.
It really challenges those assumptions we often have about talent. And yeah, like you said, intelligence, like, are we born with a certain amount of it, or can we actually grow and develop it over time?
Exactly. Dweck poses this question right up front. Can believing intelligence is fixed make you, less smart? And can shifting your mindset actually change how you deal with challenges?
Big questions. And the book really digs into those. I think what's so powerful is this core idea of the two mindsets, fixed and growth. Dweck shows how these mindsets play out in all these different areas of life.
So let's break that down. For someone who's maybe hearing about these mindsets for the first time, what's the difference?
Okay, so picture this. With a fixed mindset, you think your qualities are basically set. Your intelligence, your talent, even your personality, it's all fixed. Like, you got what you got.
Okay, and so then that leads to...
So that leads to this constant need to prove yourself.
Right.
You avoid challenges because you're afraid of looking dumb, afraid of failing.
That makes sense.
Huh?
I can see how that would hold you back. So how's the growth mindset different?
With a growth mindset, it's the opposite. You believe your abilities can be developed. It's all about effort, dedication, hard work.
You see challenges as opportunities to learn, yeah.
Totally. Setbacks happen, but they're temporary. You can learn from them, grow from them.
It's not about denying natural talent exists.
No, not at all.
But it's about realizing that talent alone isn't enough. It's that willingness to put in the work, to learn and adapt, that makes the real difference.
Absolutely. Think about two musicians, both equally talented at the start. One believes their ability is fixed, so they stick to what they know, afraid to tackle those really tough pieces.
Right, because they might mess up.
Yeah. And the other musician, the one with the growth mindset, they embrace the challenge.
They know that struggle is actually part of the process.
Exactly.
So who do you think ends up being the better musician in the long run?
The one who embraces the challenge, for sure. Now, it's easy to say, just adopt growth mindset. But what does that actually look like in everyday life? Well, Dweck gets into that, and she starts with school because, most of us have been there.
Oh, yeah, big time. I remember freaking out over math tests in high school, totally convinced I was just bad at math.
Right. And looking back, do you think that was a fixed mindset talking?
Probably. I was so afraid of looking dumb that I didn't even really try. And Dweck talks about this, right?
She does. Her research showed that students with a fixed mindset tend to struggle more with setbacks. They get a bad grade, and they take it as proof that they're just not smart.
It's like a downward spiral.
Yeah, they get discouraged, they stop putting in effort.
But someone with a growth mindset, they'd react differently.
Oh, for sure. They see that bad grade as an opportunity to learn.
Okay, so what do?
Maybe they get extra help, try different study strategies, just like double down on their effort. Dweck actually talks about this student, Jimmy. He totally transformed his grades after learning about the growth mindset.
Oh, tell me about Jimmy. That's amazing.
So Jimmy was that classic turned off student. He just didn't care, didn't see the point of trying. He figured he wasn't smart, so why bother? But then his teacher introduced this idea of the growth mindset.
And it clipped for him.
It did. Jimmy started staying up late to finish assignments, asking questions in class, even going to the teacher for extra help.
That's incredible. Just that shift in thinking really changed his behavior.
Exactly. And it's not just about thinking differently, it's about acting differently. Dweck actually goes beyond school and shows how this plays out in sports, too.
Oh, interesting. Okay, how does that work?
Well, she compares these two baseball players, Billy Beane, who was seen as this natural talent, and Lenny Dykstra, who honestly didn't have Beane's raw ability.
Okay, so what happened?
Beane, because he had this label of natural, he felt all this pressure to live up to it. So when he faced setbacks, he struggled.
Because it challenged his whole identity.
Exactly. But Dykstra, he thrived on effort. He was always looking for ways to improve, even studying like the mechanics of pitchers' arms to get an edge.
So it was Dykstra's growth mindset, his belief that he could improve, that led to his success.
Exactly. And, this connects to something really interesting about how we praise kids. Dweck found that praising intelligence can actually backfire.
Really? But we're always told to tell kids they're smart.
I know, right? But here's the thing. When we praise intelligence, we're reinforcing this idea that it's fixed.
It's like saying, that's who you are, and you can't change it.
Yeah, and that makes kids afraid to make mistakes.
Because they don't want to look like they're not smart anymore.
Exactly. So what should we do instead?
Praise their effort, their strategies, their perseverance.
Right, because that encourages a growth mindset.
A belief that they can get better through hard work. Okay, this is making me rethink a lot, not just about how I see myself, but how I talk to my own kids. But I gotta ask, how does this apply to the world of business? It seems like that's all about talent, being the best.
It is a competitive world, but Dweck uses Enron, that whole debacle, as an example of what happens when a company has this fixed mindset, this talent mindset.
That's interesting. Enron was known for hiring top talent. How did that backfire?
Well, they focused so much on appearing brilliant, on always being right.
That it created a culture where people were afraid to admit they were wrong?
Exactly. They were more worried about protecting their image than actually learning and growing.
So it's like this collective fixed mindset that brought the whole company down.
Exactly. Dweck actually compares this to Jim Collins' book, Good to Great, where he looks at companies that, went from good to being amazing.
And what did he find?
The leaders of those great companies weren't always the most brilliant or charismatic.
So what set them apart?
They were humble, they were open to new ideas, they were always learning and growing.
And they created that culture in their companies.
Yeah, they valued learning over just looking good.
So even in business, a growth mindset makes a difference. But I'm not a CEO. How does this help me in my everyday work life?
Think about it. Imagine you get this really challenging project. With a fixed mindset, you might avoid it altogether, right? Because you're scared of failing.
And looking bad.
Yeah. But with the growth mindset, you'd see that challenge as a chance to learn new skills, to really push yourself.
To get better.
Right. It's all about embracing those challenges, seeking feedback, and constantly striving to improve.
And it's not just work. Right. This mindset can help us in our personal lives too, especially our relationships.
Oh, yeah. That's actually what we're going to dive into next. And I think you'll find it pretty insightful. So we were just talking about work, but let's shift gears to relationships. How does mindset play out in our personal lives?
Yeah, I think we all know those couples who seem to handle disagreements really well. Like, they come out stronger.
Right. And then there are those who just get stuck in these cycles of blame.
Yeah, like it's always the other person's fault. Could mindset really be the difference?
Dweck says it plays a huge role. You see, with a fixed mindset, you tend to see your partner's flaws as, set in stone.
It's like you believe they can't change.
Exactly. So any negative behavior becomes proof that they're just not the right person for you.
And that leads to
a lot of judgment, criticism, even contempt.
Not exactly the recipe for a happy relationship.
Nope. It breeds negativity and resentment. But a growth mindset that allows you to see your partner's imperfections as, opportunities for growth.
So instead of saying, you always do this, or you never do that, it's more like,
hey, I've noticed this pattern. Can we talk about it? Maybe work on it together.
Yeah, that's way more constructive.
Right. You shift the whole dynamic. Instead of getting defensive, you can actually have a productive conversation.
You're focused on understanding each other, finding solutions. I get that. But changing your mindset in the middle of an argument? That's got to be tough.
It takes practice for sure. Dweck talks about recognizing your triggers.
Triggers.
Those specific situations or thoughts that set off your fixed mindset.
Okay, like what?
Say your partner forgets something you asked them to do. Your fixed mindset might jump in with, see, they don't care about me, they never listen.
Oh yeah, been there.
Yeah.
And then you get all worked up.
Right. But if you can catch that thought and say, hold on, is this my fixed mindset talking? Maybe they just got distracted or they're stressed.
You give them the benefit of the doubt.
Exactly. And that can totally de-escalate the situation. Dweck also talks about the importance of communication, like really open and honest communication.
Which is easier when you have a growth mindset.
Right, because you believe people can change. So you're more likely to share your feelings, your needs, even your vulnerabilities. You trust that your partner will listen.
And that creates a deeper connection, I imagine.
It does. So yeah, relationships are going to have their challenges, but a growth mindset gives you the tools to navigate them in a healthy way.
It's like you're a team working together, growing together.
Absolutely. But, Dweck points out something important. It's not just about individual mindset. The environment matters too.
What do you mean?
Well, think about the messages our culture sends about achievement.
Like we often praise natural talent more than hard work.
Exactly. Reality TV shows all about instant success, kids getting labeled gifted at a young age. It puts a lot of pressure on people.
Yeah. Especially those who don't fit that natural talent mold.
Right. They can make you doubt yourself, even feel ashamed for needing to work hard.
So even if you have a growth mindset, you're kind of fighting against that cultural current.
In a way, yeah. But Dweck offers some strategies for dealing with that. Be mindful of the language you use. Focus on effort and the process, not just the end result.
And celebrate those struggles, those setbacks, because that's where the real learning happens.
Right. It's about creating that culture of growth, whether it's in your family, your workplace, even your community.
This is all so insightful. But if we can change our mindsets, how do we actually do it? It seems kind of daunting.
It's definitely a process, but Dweck has some practical advice. And that's what we'll explore in the final part of our deep dive.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground on growth mindset. But how do we actually make that shift? I mean, it's one thing to understand it, but actually changing your deep down beliefs.
Yeah, it's not always easy, but Dweck does give us some tools. First, remember those triggers we talked about?
Those moments when the fixed mindset pops up.
Exactly. Well, once you start to notice those triggers, you can actually challenge them.
Like argue with that little voice in your head.
Kind of. Ask yourself, is this thought really true? Or is it just my fixed mindset holding me back?
Like, okay, fixed mindset, I hear you, but I'm not buying it this time.
Right. And then Dweck suggests replace that negative thought with something more growth-oriented.
Give me an example.
So instead of thinking, I'm so bad at this, you could think, okay, I'm not good at this yet, but I can learn. It's a small change in wording, but it can make a difference.
It's like you're reframing the whole situation, seeing those setbacks as opportunities. But what if you keep falling back into that fixed mindset?
It happens. It's a process, not a one-time thing. Be patient with yourself. Dweck talks a lot about self-compassion.
So don't beat yourself up if you have a moment of I can't do this.
Exactly. Just notice it, learn from it, and keep moving forward. It's like learning any new skill. It takes time and practice.
Speaking of practice, are there specific things we can do to develop a growth mindset?
Absolutely. One big one Dweck talks about is embracing challenges. Purposely step outside your comfort zone.
So if you hate public speaking.
Maybe volunteer to give a presentation at work. Or if you've always wanted to learn a new language, actually sign up for that class.
Put yourself out there.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to ask for help either, right?
Yeah, feedback is so valuable. And with a growth mindset, feedback isn't criticism. It's information that can help you get better.
That's a good point. It's easy to get defensive when someone points out our weaknesses. But if you see it as a chance to grow, it's less scary. You know, this whole conversation reminds me of something Dweck mentions about willpower.
Oh yeah, what about it?
She says even willpower is influenced by mindset. Like, if you believe willpower is limited, you're more likely to give up when things get tough.
It's like you're constantly worried about running out of willpower.
Right. So you avoid challenges, you give in to those temptations more easily.
But Dweck says if you believe willpower is like a muscle, something you can strengthen, you're more likely to persevere.
So instead of, I don't have the willpower to skip dessert, it's, I can strengthen my willpower by making a healthy choice right now.
Yeah, exactly. It all comes back to that belief that you can grow and change.
It's not just about being smart or talented. It's about developing those qualities that help you succeed in any area of life. You know, resilience, perseverance, a willingness to learn from your mistakes.
Couldn't agree more. And the great thing is, it's never too late to start working on those qualities.
So if you're listening and thinking, man, I wish I had a growth mindset, don't worry, you can develop it.
It takes effort, but it's possible.
Start by noticing those fixed mindset patterns. Challenge those negative thoughts. And remember, it's a journey. There will be bumps along the way.
It's not always easy, but it's so worth it.
Absolutely. With every step you take, you're building a more resilient, more fulfilling life. So that wraps up our deep dive into mindset.
Hope you found it insightful.
If you want to learn more, definitely check out Carol Dweck's book. It's packed with amazing insights and practical advice.
A real game changer.
Until next time, keep those minds open and keep growing.